Every year, a group of farmers in the north of Kenya open up their fields and tracks for a mountain bike race. Starting at 10,000 feet on the slopes of Africa's second highest peak, Mount Kenya, and descending to the savannah below at 4,000 feet. The Ten-to-Four provides one of the most magnificent backdrops for any bike race in the world. From the organised wheat and barley fields on the higher slopes, a 6,000-foot drop takes the riders down into a savannah filled with elephant and buffalo. The competition is tough and hard, but it's more than just an event. It's a way of highlighting the conservation that's needed to keep Mount Kenya and its flora and fauna intact for the future generation of Kenyans. Kenya's best cyclists line up for the Ten-to-Four Challenge over the next 2 days. An innovation this year at the Ten-to-Four is the introduction of a race on the Saturday, the Hardcore Challenge over 90 kilometres. Starting at Borana Race Village, the riders climbed up more than 3,000 metres to the edge of the Mount Kenya National Forest before plunging back down to the finish line on a very technical, difficult course through the Ngari and Dari Forest. 64 riders on the start line for the 90-kilometre challenge. David Kinja, last year's winner, and Davidson Kamau, the pre-race favourites. As one or two riders faced the challenge of the day, many of them thought they would just go out for the ride. The idea in the back of their minds was to finish this great challenge. The first thing the riders faced up to was the Ngari and Dari Forest, a very beautiful forest in this part of the world, and in fact one of the few forests in Kenya over the last 30 years that's actually increased in size. Well, as you can see, those riders just enjoying themselves, making sure that they can get to the finish. But in the early kilometres, 4 or 5 riders went the wrong way, including this man here in the blue jersey at the front, Benedict Schneider. He was trying to pull himself back into the race. He too had been a pre-race favourite, just like Kinja. Making their way up to the higher parts of Ngari and Dari, this part of the forest is renowned for the olive trees that grow abundantly in the area. Moving a little bit further down the pack, you can still see that Benedict Schneider is trying to get himself back into this race. However, the two pre-race favourites, Kinja and Kamau, they were a long way behind, having covered maybe 15 kilometres more than the rest. South African Paul Rose, the sponsor of the Sosi Safari Simbas, the best team on Kenyan soil. And Kim Green, riding in this race to try and make sure that she could be the best lady. The ride up through the Ngari and Dari forest is a very difficult ascent of around about 10 kilometres, and with Schneider moving away, it really didn't seem to upset this man at all, Julius Morivi, 67 years of age, a man who crashed out of the event last year. Schneider not very happy, obviously a little bit discontent about going the wrong way after about 4 kilometres and adding 10 kilometres to his event. And this event couldn't happen, could it, without the rangers making sure that they keep all of the wild animals, elephant and buffalo alike, off the race route. Riding now along the plateau, this is the ex-Lewa area. It's a very flat part of the plateau before they start to go up towards the highest ranches up here, Kasima Ranch, which climbs up to over 10,000 feet in altitude. This is the fastest part of the course. This is Alec Debuita just sitting at the back there. He's a man who hopes he's going to ride well into this race. Because of the confusion, the big pre-race favourites are a long way back. And what a magnificent backdrop, Mount Kenya herself. They're heading up now to the big wheat farms and barley farms of the Kasima Ranch. Once they've crossed the road here, they'll start to climb up to the highest point of today's race at 10,000 feet in altitude. Great support for these riders as they go through the Kasima feeding point and they pick up plenty of water. It's very important on a day like this, with temperatures soaring to around about 30 degrees Celsius, to keep yourself well hydrated. Climbing up through the wheat and barley farms, Martin Dyer, one of the farmers from around this area, very happy to race over his lands. And if you look in the top there, you might just notice the European swallows getting themselves ready for the long journey back to the Northern Hemisphere. Taking lots of risks, this man will go downhill very fast, because if you look at the front end of his machine, he's not got any brakes. Looking now at the First Lady, she's miles ahead of anybody else in this competition. This is Sarah Wilczkowska. She in fact was a former South African national mountain bike champion. Negotiating the downhill part very well, everybody knows that this woman knows just exactly how to temper her course and keep as much energy required for the last part of the event. Enjoying the wheat and barley fields, again, Martin Dyer, the man who runs most of the operations at the top end of the farm here, he's just keeping a check on his local produce. It really is an upside-down turned race with a lot of riders having gone the wrong way. It's been reported almost 9 riders went off course, but they haven't abandoned. Climbing up to the second highest point on this course this afternoon and throughout the 90 kilometres, the race is completely strung out. Just at the top of the climb there, you might have noticed the blue helicopter. Well, that belongs to Tropic Air. Normally, they help people go up to the top of Mount Kenya to go trout fishing, and on this occasion, they're carrying around our cameraman. Dragging herself up to the top of the climb as well, in very good position, inside of the top 10 currently overall in the event, is Sarah Wilska-Polska. And look at that style and comfort. She can see some of the men in front of her. She will use those men to try and see whether or not she can pace herself back into this race. And Martin Dyer, number 34 there, realising why he maybe shouldn't have participated this year. Over the top, the leading woman looks extremely strong, but she's only just yet at half distance. Now, how about this for courage? Number 57, this is Dedan Eriri. He's sponsored here by the Mount Kenya Trust.
Left.
He started participating in this event a number of years ago. He was in the Black Mamba race. Formerly a street boy, he lost his leg very early on in his life, and he almost participated in the Paralympics a couple of years ago. This is Marco Glastra trying to ride himself up into the top 10, and look at that magnificent view below. That's where the riders have to get for the finish. This is Peter Viljoen, a local South African rider. He's well known for his flower keeping. And riding in second place in the women's event, and this is a real mean performance by Kerry Glenn. Look at that magnificent backdrop. That's where the riders will finish this afternoon when they drop back down to 4,000 feet. But not without enjoying the view of these magnificent merino sheep, which were imported from Australia almost 80 years ago. Looking a bit further down the road there you can see Joseph Kiria of the Safari Simbas, and he's about to get help here because he's just about to be joined by his 2 teammates. That is Kamau and Kinja, the tandem who currently are lying in 20th and 21st position. A long way down in the overall race, 25 minutes for the moment behind the leader. But if they can just join forces with their teammate Kiria, they will make a formidable return because these men will not give up. David Kinja, by the way, is the defending champion, the winner of last year's event. Heading now back towards the Kisima Ranch, and this is a long drag up, and you can just see these riders starting to form groups as they will now try and use each other's slipstream to pick up the pace. This is teamwork. We're looking here at the Sosi Safari Simbas. They are the most structured professional cycling team in Kenya at the moment. They're catching Martin Dyer there. They won't even cast him a glance because what they're trying to do is ride themselves back into this event. It's an incredible job being done by the duo Kamau and Kinja. They are riding through this race. They're picking up people all of the time. Even our famous Dedan Eriri, who I don't believe he can get up to the top of this climb the way he does. What incredible courage. That's the sign of a man who will not give up, despite the fact he's only riding up here on a single leg. Into the bottom now of Kisima Farm. They're not far away from getting back in towards Ngariandari Forest, where they've got a very tricky descent back down towards the finish line. We've left the beautiful mountains behind us now. We're in this very arid area, not too far away from coming back onto Barana Ranch. This is the second place rider out on the road, Hilary Kiprotich, and it's a great chance for the kids to get away from school and see this bike race coming by. Coming around now, Johnston Kimenyi, wearing number 41. Riding themselves back into this race, Davidson Kamau and David Kinja are riding a storming race. At one place, they were 20th and 21st position. Now I've got them down at 4th and 5th. They're working well together as a team, and that's all really because of the domination and the dedication of David Kinja. Kinja, a former participant in the Commonwealth Games on 3 occasions. The first time I met him was back in the year 2000 in Manchester. Get a chance here to see how quickly they're riding over the fields here. They're now up into 3rd and 4th position, and right in front of them they can start to see now the shadow of Johnston Kimenyi. And there he is. This is the fastest part of the course now, a long way ahead of them, and they haven't even seen him since the start of the race, is the rider who leads this race overall. But look at the 2 Simbas, one on the left, one on the right. Good night, Vienna. They're not taking any prisoners here. As you can see, we're just really hammering along. This is the fastest, hottest part of the course. I'm looking to see whether or not I can pick up the shape of Paul Arica coming up. He's a rider from Eldoret as we look at the game wardens out on the course trying to keep everything nice and safe for us today. Well, this is Arica. He hails from Eldoret. He's just come from a very big training camp in Iten. And if you follow track and field, you'll know that Iten is a place where most of the top Kenya runners go for about 3 months of the year. It's at an altitude of 8,000 feet. This is Kamau on the front, Kinja in second position. These boys really are getting the hammer down. They're not going to pull back 18 minutes though, because coming up to the finish line, this is Paul Arica. He's won. He's sponsored by Land Rover, by the way, who've come in to put a lot of money into this event and, of course, into the Mount Kenya Trust. Down into the final kilometre now, these boys are taking all of the risks. They realise how important it is now to make sure there's as much time as possible not conceded as they come into what is a very magnificent finishing straight inside of all of these great fever trees. Lining it up now, Kamau is in first place, Kinja's in second place, a left-hand bend, and very shortly right in front of them they will see the finishing line. I don't think Kinja's going to come by him this afternoon because after all it's Kinja and Kamau who've done all of the pacemaking together. Second and third from the two riders out on the course who were last and second last. And coming in now, the first woman, a big smile all over her face, that's Sarah Wilsapolska, and she's proving to be a very adamant mountain bike rider. When I saw you after just 10 kilometres, you were last and second last. You rode your way through the whole of the field today to finish second and third. That's a very impressive performance, and David Kamau, what a beast.
Yeah, I know that credit goes to him, and the moment I managed to convince him, because it took me like 10 minutes talking to him, and the motorbike guy was also, you know, trying to help, and when he finally decided, okay, let's do it, and he was also angry with me, and he just rode like a madman.
This is the first one of the Hard Riders Classics here at the 10 to 4 weekend. That's an amazing performance that you did. What was it like there out on the road?
Hot, obviously. It was very, very hot. Otherwise, it was good. It was very dusty and dry, but the scenery was just amazing. It's really beautiful. It's amazing having Mount Kenya in the background there.
Day 2 is actually split up into 3 separate events with over 200 starters. First on the agenda, the 68 kilometre 10 to 4, the Classic, followed by 50 kilometres, the Rush, and then a short one for the kids to participate, the 39 kilometre Slide. With Mount Kenya and Point Lenana looking absolutely magnificent in the background, these riders are not going to go right the way to the top, but thank you very much to the National Parks of Kenya for allowing us to go right into the forest reserve for the start of this race. This is at the top farm of Kasima, right on the edge of the Mount Kenya Forest Reserve. The riders will start in waves depending on which distance they will participate in. The first to roll off will of course be the elite, men and women, and they'll climb right up into the Mount Kenya Forest, which is a national park. Everybody a little bit nervous. There's David Kinja in the middle there in the green jersey with Sosi written across it, and despite going the wrong way yesterday, he still seems to have plenty of morale for today's event. It's a very rapid and difficult start, and that little lump up there has caught 1 or 2 riders out in the warm-up. In fact, I've seen a few tumbling off. Once they move away from here, they go across a very difficult part of the course, which sets up the hierarchy going into the forest a little bit later on. It's a real rough part of the course. The soil is very soft. This is probably one of the driest I've ever seen this area in Mount Kenya over the last 5 to 6 years. You can see the big men already starting to stretch out, and that dam down there, just by reference, is normally full of water. This is the difficult pass across a very difficult ploughed field as they head into the forest. Then they'll get a bit of respite from the sun. Green jersey there looked like one of the Sosi Safari Simba riders, and he is an awful long way back. Now we're going through this very thick heather at the early part of the course. Once we get up to the high spots right in the heart of this very forest at 3,000 to 3,500 metres, we will experience alpine vegetation. It's almost like being in Europe. Everybody's struggling with this first very difficult part of the course. Bit of respite on the way down, but not for everybody. The green jerseys, that's the Sosi Safari Simbas. They are a very well-drilled squad. One big dream that David Kinja has is for his team to finish in the first 5 positions. Deeper into the forest is what the Mount Kenya Trust is all about. It's the preservation of these cedar and podo forests. They really have been around for many, many years, and a lot of people on the Trust would like to see them saved for the children of Kenya for the future. Many of these riders using the early part over the forest tracks to open up some big gaps, but now they've gone over the top of the high spot of this day's event at 3,500 metres in altitude, 10,000 feet. They are now starting to plunge down on these farm tracks, which allow the riders to touch speeds of 80 kilometres an hour. This is the man who had a bit of bad luck yesterday, Benedikt Schneider. He seems a bit happier today. But the dust is something the riders really have to battle with, and the two riders coming out of the dust are the two Safari Simbas, Davidson Kumau and David Kinjer. They've got themselves a lead at this point of around about 1 minute and 30 seconds as they go through 2,700 metres. They're on their way down. This is the Maranya farm. Kinjer is the man of experience. He's done an awful lot for Kenya cycling, and now he's spending a lot of time coaching the youth. And in fact, he's got one young 17-year-old man under his belt, and he's lived at his house for the last 6 months while he's trying to train him up to international standards. Number 2 on the front is Kumau, the feeding station here at Maranya. And that's the local farm around this area. It is so important on a day like this for the riders to keep themselves topped up with liquids. And what's happened here? I think our producer's gone mad. Well organised at this point, everybody keeping very happy. There again is Schneider in the blue jersey, a very strong competitor. And David Kumau said to me before the start of this race, I don't want to get too close to him if it comes down to a sprint, because look at the way this man is built. He's taking an advantage of the flat part of the course here. This is another Safari Simba. Almost caught me out there because he's not wearing the right jersey. This is Anthony Kerry. He's only a young rider. He wears number 10, but he is one of the Safari Simbas. We haven't yet got back towards the Ngari and Dari forest, and that's where we'll start to see the most technical part of this climb when we go back down towards the outskirts of Barana Farm. Crossing the A2 highway, that's the highway that links Nairobi to Isiolo and Ethiopia in the north, as we see the organisation continuing. Whoops, I think we've gone the wrong way. Another quick glimpse there of Peter Verloon. Verloon is well known in this area. He is actually one of the better flower farmers. And the rider with him there is keeping himself topped up with energy, and that's Peter Kanjanji. And maybe on a day like today, this is a better form of transport. Well, they seem to be enjoying the day, don't they? As we look a little bit further down, and those magnificent men in their riding machines. I'm not really sure what to call that, but he seems to be having a good time. The dust has been something very difficult that the riders have had to contend with here this afternoon. And once again, I cannot do anything but have admiration for this man, Dedan Ireri, again participating the second day in a row. And look at the energy he's putting into this. And the agility he's got, because this is a very technical race. This is the Kasima feeding station as they go back down into Kasima Farm. Well, once again, looking down the long dirt track, their best woman, as was yesterday, Sarah Wilsapolska. And not surprised, really, because she has got a very big pedigree as a mountain bike rider in South Africa. This race has certainly started to split up now, and looking back down the road, you can see a slightly different mode of transport. And just check out the way this man is steering his cow. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to enjoy the 10-4, because everybody in the community is very happy to have this race come right through their backyard. Looks like somebody's lost. Could be they're looking for a bike race. Well, there's one just down there in the valley below. But the next point on the horizon for these riders, as they go away from this really weird eroded surface of the moon, they're going to look for the Ngari and Dari, and then the technical descent before the final climb of the day. And there are the two leaders. The two leaders now are certainly pulling away further and further. In the red shoes in second position, as he seems to be all of the time, it's David Kinjer. Their time gap over the third place rider on the road is currently up as high as 2 minutes advantage. Getting around the corner, these two riders certainly know how to handle their bikes. A third place rider on the road, and he too is looking to make up a 2-minute gap. We're now getting into a rather confusing part of this course, because the three different groups, the riders participating in the 68k, the 50k and the 39k, are all on the same roads together. You can tell the difference by the difference in the number on the front of the bike, and maybe that's the best ringside view you can get. Lie down and take in the view. Yes, sir, that was very clever. This lady is a Meru Kikuyu, and if you look at that load on her back, these ladies can carry weight up to around about 70 kilos, and that lady probably weighs in at around about 70 years of age. She's not too bothered about the bike race. All she wants to do is get the wood home. It's a long, hard ride, as you can see, for all of these riders, many of them just participating in this event with one hope, and that's just finishing. The dust has been a really severe thing for these riders to have to contend with here this afternoon. As we look a little bit further down the road, and there's lots and lots of these participants just making sure they try to get some water on board. Well, everybody here seems to be enjoying themselves. They've turned out, and maybe a chance for them to get on TV. And it wouldn't be a race in Africa, would it, if we didn't have a bunch of kids to enjoy the view. Heading down now away from Uhuru water stop, just a little bit further behind, and a little lower down below us. We are in farming area, and those are the famous black-faced sheep. More and more riders are realizing it's not that easy to jump on a bike and ride 39, 56 or 50k. This looks like Sam Goodwin. She's riding in a mountain bike race for the first time in her career. Here you get a chance to see just how difficult the terrain is, and this lady looks to me as if she's very, very much enjoying herself. But do me a favour, keep away from the edge of the road. And a quick shout for number 104, because that's Richard Harm. He's one of the committee members of the Mount Kenya Trust. He's enjoying the roads that are around here that he's trying to protect for the future. Next spot on the horizon is going to be the Oldonyo water spot, and then it's down into the very heart of the Ngari and Dari forest. We're starting to catch one or two of the younger riders now, the riders participating in the 39k race, but this man has still got plenty of energy. And if somebody could write in, maybe you could tell me what kind of a machine that is. Well, I suppose he couldn't be shouted at for lying down on the job, because he's touching speeds here of approaching 60 kilometres an hour. Now it's into the forest. This is the technical part, the descent down through the Ngari and Dari forest. Very tricky, very tortuous, and lots of scary rocks to make you come unstuck. This is the olive part of the forest again as we go down here. This man is doing a phenomenal job, but he's a long way behind the two leaders. The two leaders are Kimau and Kinja, still leading by around about 2 minutes. But whenever you go down, you've also got to go back up. And that's what makes this race very difficult. Although it's called the 10 to 4, there's an awful lot of climbing. This is the separation in the road. The elite riders have to go to the left and start to climb up the final circuit, an extra circuit of 20 kilometres. And Sam Goodwin is still leading in her competition. Chance there to see some of the Laikipia Maasai goats meandering around here. But watch out, because there's plenty of wildlife on the horizon. That's the shortcut home. That's the way back for the 39-kilometre riders. But I'm getting some information, and there we are. There are elephants on either side of the course. Now's the time when the game wardens are going to really have to do their job. And what's disturbing these elephants here is somebody's riding a bike race right in their front garden. And on the other side of the road, what they're looking for is a watering hole. As you can see, some big tuskers on either side of this race. This really is probably one of the only places in the world where you can ride amongst the elephant and the buffalo, and maybe, why not, a lion. Tense moments here really for the game wardens. They're wondering what's the reaction going to be, and when you see an elephant's ears come out like that, that's an indication that he's not too happy. And there's the warden. And the elephant's decided, I'll take a drink a little bit later in the day. Well, that was a great job of work, and it must have been a nervous moment for the game wardens here. In fact, they're private game wardens on one or two of the game ranches around here. Game ranches like Lewa and Barana, where the elephants and the buffalo and the lion roam free. One of the riders on the shorter course, and not too far away, you can just spot the buffalo. That's a nice little herd of buffalo, about 30 or 40. If you get a chance to look at this bike rider, I think he's picked up the pace just a fraction because he wants to get away and home safely. Now, if you can just see over to the right-hand side here, you might just see a rock right in the middle sticking out. Well, that in fact is Pride Rock, and it gave its name to the famous Lion King. That looks like one of the Safari Simbas. In fact, I think that was Lewis Murray trying to keep himself nice and fast and get himself back into the race. And his nickname, by the way, is the Samurai Warrior. And I'm not quite sure why. The long, lonely road as we make our way back down into Barana Ranch, and it is very dry in this part of Kenya at this time of the year as we drop down from the slopes of Mount Kenya right down to the edge of the desert region around Isiolo and Samburu. And this is a very tricky part of the course too. There's lots of things to create a little bit of inattention. If you do, you could find yourself coming seriously unstuck. Here you can see this is a real question of survival now. We're getting into around about the third hour of racing for many of these riders. And some of these guys, they just want to get to the finish because I'm sure there's a cold tusker in store for them. Many of these riders, just looking at the pace, what they're thinking about is just getting themselves to the finish, getting themselves to the end of the day to talk about what they've seen out on their bike ride through the Laikipia Hills. They've seen elephant, they've seen buffalo, and plenty of other little stories I'm sure will unfold around the campsite tonight. As we roll over the final few meters here, I can tell you there was confusion once again as Davison Kamau and David Kinja once again, while in first and second place, went off course and pulled themselves back into this race. But it was one of their teammates from the Simba Safaris who came across the line in first place, Vincent Knuthia. He led the race after 4 hours and 25 minutes of competition. And this young man now is coming into the finishing straight. I can also tell him that Paul Arico, the winner of yesterday from Eldoret, came across the line in second place, and David Kinja crossed the line in third. Oops, sorry about that, young man. That's what happens when you try to show off to the crowd. So there is confirmation. Vincent Knuthia, the overall winner from the Safari Simbas, ahead of Paul Arico, the winner of the first day, and David Kinja in third. And that will be exactly the same place in the overall competition over the 2 days of racing. Simbas first, Land Rover second, and Simbas third. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the 10 to 4. It really has brought about some magnificent scenery, and we hope this event is going to get better and better with every year. But one thing will remain constant, and that's Mount Kenya, because she will always be there to look down on the 10 to 4. Until the next time, I'm Paul Sherwin saying goodbye for now.